good morning to you all, dear TVET colleagues. Innovation and excellence is a great subject, and I feel honored to speak to it on this podium this morning. And when I began to reflect on innovation and excellence, it did come to me that innovation in TVET is oftentimes the response to an external agenda. And I think that when you take climate change and greening TVET, you have a very good example of that. And I also came to think that innovation that leads to excellence and that would be sustainable also has to draw from the inner strength and the core capabilities of an existing TVET institution or TVET ecosystem. And I think we've seen some good examples for that also in the very impressive presentations that we had this morning. I also want to illustrate that by speaking about dual studies in Germany. Dual studies is at a dual university and an innovation and a case in point for excellent practice that developed out of the dual system of apprenticeship in Germany, and from which I hope to draw also some relevant conclusions for similar initiatives in India, such as the B.Voc and the skills universities, of which we heard already yesterday. Dual studies are to be defined as an apprenticeship combined with a degree course in a university at higher education level, at a vocational academy or at a university. And the characteristic is that it leads to two and hence to dual qualifications. Number one, the academic qualification, a Bachelor of Science, which is a tertiary qualification. And number two, vocational qualification, which is that of a skilled laborer, equivalent to craftsman, journeyman, which is at the upper secondary level. And dual studies have built on and have leveraged industrial apprenticeships as a key asset of the dual system, and has effectively elevated industrial apprenticeship to a higher level of readiness and preparedness for Industry 4.0 and for artificial intelligence. In Industry 4.0 and artificial intelligence, it has also contributed to integrating apprenticeships into larger schemes of lifelong learning. I want to put a word of caution here, namely to point out that dual studies are not to be confused with the dual system, which refers to in-company apprenticeship and attendance of vocational school at the secondary level. And this is to be taken into consideration. In the early 1970s, a group of well-known companies in the Stuttgart area, which is the capital of Baden-Württemberg, the southwestern state of Germany. These three companies were Daimler-Benz, Robert Bosch, and Standard Electric. They were dissatisfied with the lacking employability and the work readiness and the career preparedness of university graduates, and they proposed something new. Their idea was to take their own technical and administrative apprentices and let them study part-time in addition and in parallel to their apprenticeship training. The plan met obviously with resistance from universities and the Ministry of Education, but it took off nonetheless, and in fact in 2009, eventually the state government of Baden-Württemberg recognized the scheme, was convinced about its merit, and elevated the vocational academies that were part of it to the status of state universities. The system now is one of the largest providers of higher education in Germany overall, the largest in Baden-Württemberg, and it has approximately 34,000 students, on 12 campuses of universities of applied science, which is similar to the Polytechnic in other systems. It is now called the Dual University. It confers bachelor and master's degrees and may well be compared to state university systems in the United States, like the State University of New York or Penn State. However, the distinguishing factor remains that the students pass out with a vocational qualification and a bachelor's degree. And this means that these students, in their double role of apprentices and students, the status of apprentice comes first and is foremost, and it is seen by the fact that before enrolling to the university, they must have already secured an apprenticeship with a company or in an industry. Dual studies have since been emulated widely across Europe, in other federal states of Germany, in Austria and Switzerland, and they have also been guiding for degree apprenticeships in the UK. All told, there are now 1,479 dual degree courses at 225 universities, and this number has come out of a research which is done by the German Federal Institute of Vocational Education and Training, the BIP, which, like PSSCIVE and the institutions represented here, is also a UNIVOC center. BIP has also come up with a useful typology of dual studies, which I, for simplicity's sake, have condensed into two basic models, which you see on the slide. Model 1 is apprenticeship with degree course, and it is industry-driven or company-driven model where the apprenticeship takes precedence over the degree course. The candidate's main contractual relationship is that of being an apprentice, and he or she, if she drops out of the degree course, they will still continue to be an apprentice and get the vocational qualification. And the dual university fits this model. Number 2 is the degree course with apprenticeship, and it is the university-driven or student-driven model where the apprenticeship takes second place behind the degree course. The main role of the candidate here is that of being a student enrolled in a university, and the role of the apprenticeship comes only second. It does not need to comply with vocational standards, and sometimes the on-the-job training part here is more like an apprenticeship. More like an internship, I meant to say, and we lost the slide, but maybe it can be reinstalled by the technicians back there. I also want to say that Model 1 results in 100% placement of candidates, whereas the placement rate in Model 2 is somewhat lower and comes to something like 70 or 80%, which still is relatively high. For an apprentice, doing an apprenticeship plus a university degree is an attractive proposition and is a gain. On the other hand, we may consider that for a university student who is in a degree course, we've come back, good. For a university student who is in a degree course, being in a mandatory apprenticeship or internship may be far less attractive. Maybe far less attractive. Now, I don't know what's going there, but we've seen it, the two basic models. I would like to sum up the key success factors for them. The scheme emerged successfully because it was industry-driven and because of industry need to attract and groom employable young talent for technical and managerial careers. The degree is a full academic degree without a designation that seems to be limiting or qualifying. And as a side thought here, I would think that Bachelor of Vocational Studies, B.Voc, would not be quite as successful in Germany. And the vocational qualification is awarded by a chamber based on a chamber exam. And academic and vocational stakeholders don't interfere with each other. However, the phases of apprenticing and studying are carefully coordinated time-wise. Implications for India, B.Voc, and the Skills University system. The B.Voc was introduced in 2014 under the Universities Grant Commission and under the Ministry of Human Resources Development. B.Voc is a full academic degree pegged to NSQF level 7, and it has a curriculum that comprises 60% on the job training and 40% school training. The scheme is designed for flexibility as it avails entry and exit positions. And B.Voc programs are similar to the Model 1 here, as they are university-driven, and the general education component is dominant, even if it is limited to 40% of the instruction time. Skills universities combine a non-designated apprenticeship with a degree course in one coordinated curriculum. The weighting between the two elements is also 60-40s. Universities are based on a tripartite, skills universities based on a tripartite arrangement between university employer and sector skills councils. There are presently 20 such skills universities in India, and the number can be expected to be upscaled to something in the area of 100 post-2021. And the speed and scope of scaling up will, I think, largely depend on interest and capacity of the respective sector skill councils. Skill universities are more akin to Model 1 in this comparison. Given India's high potential for skilling, I feel it is highly desirable that B.Voc and skills universities will grow fast. However, some sources of conflict remain. I will point out a number of conclusions and recommendations. Key success factors for India, in my opinion, would be that skills universities and higher education institutions offering B.Voc must have very strong corporate networks and offer quality on-the-job training. And the on-the-job training must be given structure according to standards with learning objectives. And mere internships, are not good enough. Assessment and certification of the vocational part, OJT, and the academic parts should be kept separate. Imagine that if academics get into vocational assessment and skills experts get into academic exams, there is a great potential for conflict. And finally, consider a Model 1 project in India, which is employer or industry-driven, and where the apprenticeship is enriched with a university course. Ladies and gentlemen, a global trend is vocalization of higher education and academization of technical vocational education and training. Dual studies, B.Voc skills universities are all very worthy instances of innovation and are a high potential of excellence. And I do think we need to see a lot more of it. And I appreciate and thank you for your attention.